A man without enemies is a man who has never stood for anything in his life. This is a fact. I cannot possibly imagine living a life that was so small, so meaningless, so utterly forgettable that I never had any enemies while I was in it. No one who was standing against me. No one who was watching and waiting, plotting on my downfall or my failure. And if you're a man and this describes you, then you have a problem. And this is a big problem because no enemies means you have no standards. It means you have no beliefs. It definitely means that you have no balls. Living without enemies is the clearest sign that you're not even in the game of life. And I assure you, life is a game. The good news is that this is one area you can easily get better at life. Now, the problem is, no enemies is a very clear indication that you have no purpose. It's a very clear indicator. So if we start with just the basics, if you have no enemies, it means you've never stood for anything in your life. And if you've never stood for anything, then you're just drifting. You are purposeless. If you have no standards, then you will give no resistance. You will offer zero resistance. So a man without enemies is a man who lets the world walk all over him, because he has no standards and he has no beliefs. And even if he did, he doesn't have the spine to enforce either one. Anyone can say anything, do anything, and you'll just sit there nodding along, hoping you don't offend anyone and you can get along with everyone. That's not a man, that's a shadow. And if you have no value, then you'll have no haters. So if we take it just one step deeper, just a little bit deeper, if you have no enemies, then you're also not gonna have any haters. And you know what that means? It means you're not worth anything to anybody. Nobody registers. Nobody sees you as a threat. Nobody sees you as competition. Nobody sees you at all. Haters hate on those who are growing, building, and achieving. People only hate what they fear or what they envy. You have no haters because you're invisible. And let's be real, if you're invisible, it is because you are not offering anything. You are not moving, operating, or speaking in a way that lets people know that you have something to offer. Now, the trick is you must earn your enemies, right? So if we think, like, what is the goal here? Obviously, it's not just to get by or avoid conflict. That's the life you're living now. We got to get away from that life. It's to live in a way that forces the world to notice, to create waves that are so big that you either pull people in or you push people away. It's to live with such conviction, such rapid growth that enemies become inevitable. Because having standards will automatically create opposition. Does it automatically. When you set standards, real standards, you're gonna piss people off because your standards challenge something about themselves. Whether it's as simple as their laziness, their mediocrity, their comfort zones, or even if we just go just a little bit deeper and it challenges their faulty belief system. Something about them is being challenged. The moment you draw a line in the sand, you're gonna find out exactly who's willing to cross it and who's going to stand against you, which is good, that's perfect, that's exactly what you want, because competition breeds skill. This is the importance of competition. So you have to be intelligent and intentional. Who are you aligning yourself against? Who are you chasing? Who do you want to overtake and destroy? Competition breeds skill. Without it, you will stay soft. You're going to stay aimless and you're going to stay mediocre. You need rivals. You need someone to beat. You need someone to prove wrong. You need someone to outpace. Without that, you're just another nobody floating through life, making nothing happen. Now, I want to get this very clear though, very, very, very clear. This doesn't mean that you're suddenly ready to lead just because you do all this stuff. This doesn't mean that suddenly your thoughts and your opinions matter, because most likely they don't. And here's a harsh truth for most of you. You're not a general. I don't care what you're thinking, you're most likely never going to be a general. But you're not even a good soldier yet. Leadership is earned. A general is just a soldier who once followed orders exceptionally well and learned along the way. Natural leadership is actually rare. Most of us have to go through the fire to earn it. So you're not going to start out as a leader. You're going to start at the bottom, following orders, proving your worth. And if you've got a good mentor or a strong leader, they're going to push you harder than you think you can handle. And that's exactly what you want. You want someone that's going to stretch you past your limits. A good example, man, is Mark Zuckerberg. He once told a member of his team to build a search engine. The guy was like, I don't know nothing about that. That's not my job, not my experience, not my education. Mark just looked at the dude and said simply, man, I built Facebook. I think you can figure out how to build a search engine. That dude now looks back on that moment as one of the most valuable experiences in his life because it stretched him. It forced him to grow beyond his own limits. And that's what good leaders do. They push you to levels that you did not know you had. They stretch you to and then past your self-presumed limits. So why does all of this matter? What is the purpose of all of this, right? Because living with standards, attracting enemies, and earning haters isn't just about proving a point. It's about becoming a man of value. And that is the point of a man's life, is to gain and add value. Enemies force you to grow. Enemies sharpen you. They test your resolve, they test your vision, and they test your discipline. And every time you face resistance, you have to level up to get past it. So you either get stronger or you get crushed. And if you're smart, if you're intelligent and intentional about the enemies that you choose, man, one day you'll be looking back on it and you'll thank your enemies for making you better. Haters will validate your growth. That is just the truth, man. Haters are proof that you're doing something right. They wouldn't hate you if you weren't climbing, growing, or threatening something about themselves, even if it's just the security of where they see themselves in life. People start to hate only when they know you're making an impact, when you are a catalyst of some kind of change, even if it's just in yourself. This is all part of the process on how to start living like a man. If you want to stop living in obscurity and you want to start making enemies, man, it is simple. Just set standards and stick to them. Decide what you stand for and enforce it. Draw a line in the sand and let the chips fall where they may. Don't give one damn about who says what. Don't care about who you offend. Don't care who becomes your enemies. You fucking make a stand and you take a stand and you stay there. Then identify your competition. Who do you want to overtake? Who's doing what you want to do? Make them your rival and start closing that gap. Next, you have to find a mentor and follow orders. You're most likely not ready to lead, so find someone who is. Learn from them, follow them, and let them push you up until and past your self-perceived limits. Most importantly, you need to welcome resistance. When people push back, man, let them. Resistance is your proving ground. It's where you show the world and yourself what you're made of. Now, I encourage you to track your growth, man. Just keep a journal. Write down your standards, who's pushed back on them, and where you face resistance. When you can see those things, man, you can use those as fuel to your fire to accomplish your next steps. So, this is my challenge to you, man. Take the next 30 days to change the rest of your life. Focus on building a life that makes enemies inevitable. Write down what you stand for. What are your non-negotiable standards? Not just for others, but for yourself and for life. List the people or forces you need to overcome. Your competitors, your rivals, or your doubts. Take one action every single time that you can that aligns with your standards and pushes against the status quo. Do not sit quietly while people are saying or doing something that goes against your standards or your beliefs. You stand up and you say or you do something. At the end of those 30 days, take a note. Who's noticed? Who's pushed back? When you can see those things down, you can congratulate yourself because you're no longer invisible. People have noticed. A life without enemies is a life without purpose. If no one opposes you, it's because you've never stood for anything. You've never built anything. And most importantly, you've never challenged anything. So you have to make the choice. It's either stay invisible or start living like a man who matters. Until next time, man, stay disciplined, stay focused, and keep learning to unleash your inner beast.